Hi guys, so this is our first lesson on Ed Puzzle for today from St. Anne High School. Make sure that you have a piece of paper nearby to take notes, and we're going to go ahead and get started here. First of all, your warm-up for today, according to the syllabus, what are my 5 binder sections? If we were to have a binder in class, how would I want you to have them organized? Please make sure you have that figured out. And let's go ahead and get started here, okay? So, we're going to talk about basic skills today. You guys have seen these on the Delta math assignment. I want to make sure that we understand how to do these. You can go ahead and revisit them if you thought it was a little bit challenging. That's okay. When we talk about our first set of basic skills, the first thing we're going to need to do in order to get through algebra is knowing how to add and subtract integers. Okay, so an integer is basically any number you see on a number line has a positive or negative, like we've seen in probably multiple classrooms. We want to make sure we understand how to do this, okay? And everything really hinges on, if I'm being completely honest with you, everything really hinges on having a plus sign between here, okay? Now with -5 plus -8, when they have the same sign, okay, same sign, we just go ahead and add them and keep the sign. So -5 plus -8, we can treat that the same as 5 plus 8, with a negative sign in front of it. So in this case, 5 plus 8 is 13. -5 plus -8 is going to be -13. Okay? And the same thing goes for, let's go on down here. Let's say we have different signs here. Okay? So different signs. So -4 plus a +1. The way we want to think about this is we want to find the difference between 4 and 1, which we know from doing lots of addition and subtraction in our lives. We know that the difference is 3, but which one's bigger, 4 or 1? We know that 4 is bigger and it has the negative sign. That means that when we combine these two right here, that gives us -3. Okay? And the way you remember this is just a little acronym I like to call SADS. Okay? What I mean by SADS is basically this. This means right here, SA means same sign, you add them. So if they're both positive, both negative, you add them together, just like we saw for number 1 here. But if they have a different sign, you subtract them. You find the difference here, okay? So that's how we know how to combine our integers using subtraction and addition. Now when we subtract here, there's one thing that I've always used that really helps us out, and that is using what's called keep, change, change, okay? So we keep, the sign of the first one, we change our subtraction to addition, and then we change the sign of the last one, okay? So we're going to keep the -1 for -1 minus 5. We're going to keep this, so -1. We're going to change our subtraction to a positive, and we're going to change the sign on the 5 here to negative. Now this makes this a whole lot easier to look at because now they have the same sign and we're adding. So -1 plus -5 just becomes -6. Okay, so -1 minus 5 is -6. If we apply that same logic to -8 minus -5, we keep the -8. We change the minus sign between them to a plus. So plus, and then we change the sign on the -5 to a +5. So now we're looking at the last two here on our SADS. So that means that we're looking at the difference between 8 and 5, which is 3. But now is it positive or negative? Well, in this case, because the 8 is negative and it's the larger of the two, we keep our sign negative. Okay? Let's go ahead and move on to the next set here. What happens if we have multiple? Okay? We have multiple numbers, we're adding or subtracting. The first thing you want to do is try to eliminate as many subtraction as possible. So we're just adding here. So if we're looking at the first one, we have a negative sign right here. So 2 plus -7 minus -3. Let's go ahead and apply keep, change to the last two integers right here. So we're going to keep -7. We're going to change that minus sign to a positive, and then we're going to change the sign to the 3. So we get this right here. So now we can bring everything down and we can use order of operations here to finish this off. So 2 plus -7, different signs, we add them together. That means that we get 2 plus -7. Difference between 2 and 7 is 5. 7's bigger, so we make this -5. -5 plus 3. Once again, different sign, that means we find the difference between them. So if the difference between 5 and 3 is 2, make that a negative because 5 is bigger. So negative 2 is what this is all equal to here. Okay? Next problem, going to the right here, negative 6 plus negative 1 plus negative 3. They're all negative. They're all the same sign. So we can just think of this as 6 plus 1 plus 3 with a negative sign on it. 6 plus negative 1 is negative 7. It's negative 7 plus negative 3. We add those together. 7 plus 3 is 10. Therefore, this is going to simplify to negative 10. So all this added together is negative 10. Okay? Going on to the next one. Once again, we want to make sure that we have as many positive or as many addition signs as we possibly can. So we're going to apply keep, change to the first two integers here. So we're going to get 1, keep the 1 positive, change the minus to a positive, to a plus, and then we're going to make the 3 there negative, plus negative 2. Okay? So 1 plus negative 3, difference between 1 and 3 is 2. 3 is bigger, so that makes this negative 2. So negative 2 plus negative 2. Oh, that's easy. That's the same sign. So same sign, add them together. Negative 2 plus negative 2 is 4. Make it negative, though. So this whole thing right here is going to be equal to negative 4. All right. Next one, a little bit more of negatives here, but that's nothing we can't deal with. So negative 8 minus 5 plus negative 1. So once again, we're going to change out all of our subtraction signs to be positive or addition signs. So we're going to apply keep, change to the first two integers here. So negative 8 stays the same. You're going to put that in parentheses. Change the subtraction to a positive. Make the 5 a negative. So now we have negative 5 here. Plus, I'm going to put that in parentheses too, so it looks a little bit nicer so we're not confusing our signs. All right, but take a look here. All of these have the same sign, so we just have to add them. Negative 8 plus negative 5. Well, 8 plus 5 is 13, so that means that negative 8 plus negative 5 is negative 13. And then negative 13 plus negative 1, we're just going left one space on our number line. That means we have negative 14 here. All right, so all this will come out to be negative 14. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at some multiplication and division. Okay, so looking at multiplication and division, unfortunately we really can't do much with keep, change here. We just have to remember what our rules are for multiplying positives and negatives together. And basically, the only rule that we really need to change or need to mention is going to be anytime we have a negative times a negative, that gives me a positive, okay? Or same with a positive times a positive number, that gives me a positive number as well, okay? The other hand, if we have negative times a positive, that gives me a negative number back. And then if we have a positive times a negative, that's going to give me a negative number back here. So those are our basic positive and negative rules. But other than that, it's just multiplying numbers together. And we're going to go from here. All right, so negative 8 times negative 8. A negative times a negative is a positive. So this is going to be the same as 8 times 8, which is 64. Okay? And then we're going to move on. Let's go just to the right here. Negative 10 times 9. So a negative times a positive. That means my answer is going to be negative. 10 times 9 is 90. So this is going to give me negative 90 as an answer here. Okay. Once again, right below the first one, negative times a negative means that this is going to be a positive number. So we can just look at this as 4 times 2, which is 8. Okay. And then negative 2 times 8. Negative times a positive means we're going to get a negative number. So 2 times 8 is 16. Negative 2 times 8 has to give me negative 16. Okay? Once again, we want to make sure we're following these rules. It's going to be super important. I know this seems really basic, but it's going to be super important when we get into the meat of everything we're going to see in this first unit about solving equations, solving inequalities, okay? So you need to be able to, when we get to a larger equation, know your positive, negative rules, adding, subtracting negatives. Let's look at the last page here. All right, now we're looking at division. The same rules apply as they would for multiplication here. So A positive divided by a positive will still give me a positive, just like we see right here. 50 divided by 5. How many times does 5 go into 50? Well, that's going to give me 10. Okay? And you can do that by counting up by 5 10 times. That gives me 50. Okay? Looking at the next one to the right here, 45 divided by negative 9. Okay, going to the right here, a positive divided by a negative means that my answer is going to be negative. So let's see here, how many times does 9 go into 45? That's going to give me 5. Okay, so the answer for the next one is negative 5. Okay, and then for 35 divided by negative 7, once again, a positive divided by a negative gives me a negative. How many times does 7 go into 35? That's going to give me, once again, negative 5. Okay, and then the last one, just like we saw in the first few, a negative divided by a negative just is going to be the same thing as a positive or negative times a negative, or negative times a negative, I'm sorry. So two negative numbers divided by each other is going to give me a positive. 64 divided by 8 gives me a positive 8 here. Okay, so you can see why I had you guys try the challenge on Delta Math here. The faster you are with recalling these basic facts, the faster you are with knowing your negatives and positives, the better it's going to be when it comes to solving equations, okay? So your homework for this lesson, I've already posted it on our Google Classroom. If you're watching this, it should be there. If not, make sure you message me. It is that basic skills worksheet. It's all on Google Classroom. So make sure you do that. With that assignment, I'm going to bring up a couple things. First of all, make sure you're showing your work. Okay, more so, not necessarily on the addition and subtraction ones, for the multiplication division ones, but for addition and subtraction. Okay, apply that keep, change, change rule. Okay, so you're applying keep, change. So that way we don't get confused here. Okay, I know a lot of you guys can probably do mental math, but I want to be able to see your work. All right, and then when you're all done with that, when you have your worksheet done, whether you do it on the worksheet when you print it off at home or if you do it on a separate sheet of paper, make sure you submit it, a picture of it. All right. And this will be due at midnight, or I should say at 11:59 on Sunday. So when we come back on Monday, you guys are all set. All right? All right, if you have any questions, make sure you contact me, and I will see you guys later.